Today's guest has been a leader in the art world for over a decade. As the founder and director of Art Pharmacy, she's helped deliver unique, creative, and culturally rich works to clients and galleries across the world. All the while, she stayed engaged with her community as an ambassador for the entrepreneur organization's Sydney branch and as a committee member at the Biennale of Sydney. Now she's sitting squarely at the crossroads of culture, art, and technology with her latest venture, Sugar Glider, a digital art platform powered by NFTs and backed by Animoca Brands. Joining us from Sydney, the author of Making Art Matter, the Art Wizardess herself. Please welcome Emilya Colliver. Great day. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Oh, what a great introduction. Thank you so much. Love it. Wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And how great is it that we met a month ago? Was it a month? 2 months ago?
Yeah. No, it was wild. It was wild. And yeah, it's just, they talk about networking and just being connected and being in the place. And it was a good time. You, I, Ollie, and Austin for Consensus. That was your first time going to Consensus, right?
That's right. That's right. That was wild. And then I went on to NFT New York after that. I think I preferred Austin, actually. It just felt a little bit smaller.
For sure. And before, where were you? You were at another event in Austin like the week prior too, right?
Yeah, Decentral. So it was a smaller, I suppose, grassroots. It's more of a grassroots conference, I'd say. It was actually really great. I met some really good people there. It was, I love that idea of not just the bigger conferences, the smaller conferences, because they tend to be a little bit smaller and you meet different people and you learn about the smaller projects as well. The smaller project's going to be the next big projects, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's a great segue. So you were on a tour. You were like, I don't know how many weeks it was, but why were you on this tour?
Okay, that's a great question. So 3.5 weeks through the US. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, as you mentioned. I had the investment from Animoca about a year before that, and I've just been getting into NFTs. I've been learning about it. Being an art curator, being in the industry for a long time, I was like, I need to understand what's happening overseas, because I feel like in America, there's just so much more going on. Australia's got 23 million people. We're the size of Florida. If you put that into perspective, it makes you understand like how small Australia is. So my intention was just to go out there and learn as much as I possibly can. I remember contacting you guys, Palm, and I got very excited about just what you guys are doing in the space. And just looking at all the different projects that are really exciting me in the art world. So I just thought, I felt like it was an MBA really, like a month MBA of just learning. So, and I had just a really open mind. I did hook up with Blockchain Australia, but I tended not to hang out with too many Australians just because I wanted to meet, lots of different international people. So that really served me well.
Awesome. And did you feel like what were some of your main takeaways? You were like, hey, I'm in Australia. A lot of this stuff is happening overseas in the US. What were some of your main kind of realizations that you were able to take from that tour?
Yeah, well, that's so quite a few things, actually, that it's really a very emerging market. Nothing's really, it's like this race to get to the end, but it's also, there's quite experimental phase, actually. It's a really wonderful phase to be in, and lots of different ideas, lots of learnings. So also I like the idea of Web 2 to Web 3. So someone said Web 2.5. I was like, yes, that's what it feels like. We're in this, it hasn't yet emerged. I also realized there was a lot of hot air out there as well. Like I think there's a lot of people that were starting projects and you're asking questions about it, but they couldn't really give you an honest answer, or their backgrounds, they're just coming in, they've probably heard about the bull rush, and it felt like, or the gold rush, they call it, like, everyone's running in to find, pan that piece of gold sort of thing. And that's actually what it felt like a little bit. I suppose now that the market has sort of contracted a bit, which I prefer, it's like then all the, I suppose all the tricksters, the ones that were trying to get in there have probably diminished. So this is actually a really good time to be building, really good time to be really consolidating actually how for the next wave. I was talking to someone yesterday. So I was like, oh, it's a really bad market. I said, no, actually, if you can actually build a business when it's actually down, you build it when it goes up. That's the best thing, because you're going to be riding that wave rather than, at the peak and then you crash. It's the other way around. So that gave me, I think also being in the US really gave me a lot of confidence, just personally, just where I am. Also, the other idea was, I went to a lot of, especially in Consensus, there was Christie's and Sotheby's doing a lot of the, talking about digital art and the height of the market. But then at the bottom of it, you've got all these projects and these people that are making a huge amount of money, but they're sort of these young, and that market hasn't sort of caught up. And I feel like I sit in the middle of that market, and I feel like we've still got a couple of years until that segment actually has connected. That was just my feeling of just when I was talking with people and just meeting with different people and just talking about art. A lot of these large organizations that are working in the art world actually don't have an art curator on hand. Like, I was really surprised when I met with like Super Rare, and I was like speaking to John, and he's mentioned he's got 2 curators, and I asked him about where they were. He actually couldn't tell me much about their background. And so that's another, I was just really surprised that there's not more, people are not collaborating with art curators that have actually been in the industry for a long time. I think there are a few people out there doing it, but generally people are curating their own, rather than coming from the fine art. So that was a big surprise for me as well, that there hasn't been more of that crossover and collaboration. It is slowly springing up, don't get me wrong, but I think over the next couple of years that will also change.
So if we just kind of pull on that thread there for a second, as someone who's been an art curator for damn near over a decade, what is your insight as to why there has not been that cross-pollination? Do you think that there might be some sort of opinions held from the fine art side that, sure, Sotheby's went ahead, did something, Christie's did something, but do you think that there's still kind of a cultural pushback against, oh, these NFTs, that's not art and this is the way to do it? Why do you think that those two haven't really come to the table together?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think there's just so many parts of that question. I mean, there's different segments as well. You've got the artist on one side. You've got to remember these artists have gone to art school, usually more the traditional art schools that you learn to paint, you learn to draw. So it's very traditional. And if you're represented by a gallery, what happens within that gallery space is you paint the collection. And, for a year, every 2 years, then your collection goes up for a month, and then you have an opportunity to purchase those artworks. So, and it depends on what the contract is for those artists as well, if they can move outside of doing digital art, for instance. So that's something to consider. And then if they're traditional artists, moving into that technology is quite hard. And then learning about NFTs, and there is a lot of, talking about climate and what's that doing to the environment. So, and a lot of artists do sit on that more, I suppose, climate conscious. So a lot of them are a little bit scared, but don't know actually how to do it. So I think there's the artist bucket, like thinking from that. But then there are artists within that are actually exploring that space. And then you've got digital artists that are purely have designed, started and been digital artists. And within that, there might be that traditional artist moving into that space as well. So I think that's a part of it. And then on the other side, you've got the art curators that are learning how to curate, how to work with clients in the space as well. I mean, my main clients are mainly corporate clients. So with my first business, Art Pharmacy, we work with those traditional artists and we put them into corporate art collections like Deloitte in Sydney, Melbourne, Parramatta, which is west of Sydney here, and the capital, Canberra. Very more traditional artworks, painters, muralists, vinyl artists, public artwork like sculpture. So that's the more traditional forms. And with the Sugar Glider business, we really thought about digital artists that are just breaking out of that, and we can work with them. What we're also trying to do now is actually find those traditional artists and work with animators to animate some of their works as well. So you're still getting those traditional artists coming into the space as well, and we're supporting their journey. And it's not easy and it's not cheap to do that as well, and takes time to do it, because you've got to make sure that the artist is happy in signing it off, that their work has changed somewhat, especially working with First Nation artists as well, how that can sort of change as well. So there's lots of different factors to that question, and I'm not sure if I've sort of answered it, but I'm still trying to sit with it and try to excuse me, trying to understand how the market's working and how it actually is changing as well. And I think on the other side, it depends on, I have a philosophy as well, and this might be so wrong, but I feel like I'm meeting a lot of people in the space now that have come back actually from the US. I met a lot of Australians and I'm catching up with them, actually a few today there where I met some people. And so it was actually really great for me to sort of do that networking over here. And they've explained to me, in the early days, they were buying that Bitcoin really, the 2014 or they purchased it really, really early. And then they didn't know where to sort of spend their money. So then that's where the NFTs have sort of come about. And then it depends on, and they've been driving that culture. And some of the pieces that have come out of that are probably not so far, and you wouldn't call it classical fine art. But then I think that there is now what's happening is, rather than the avatars now is actually moving into more of that fine art space where you're seeing those traditional painters coming in and working with them. So I am seeing a lot of these more organizations or companies that are actually working with those artists as well. So it's sort of going, there's lots of different factors going on. I'd love to map it all out, actually. It's probably a good thesis, to be honest with you, Sae'Von.
Yeah. You could have a whole series, break it down on your podcast, throw it on LinkedIn, and I'm sure it brings some great visibility. That whole concept, or the way you kind of just laid that out, it made me think, you raised your pre-seed funding in, was it 2020 or 2021?
Well, it was 2020, but we finally got the money in 2020. No, this year. So no, it was last year. So 2021. And the story is, I'm an EO, it's an entrepreneur organization it's actually an American. Have you heard of that, EO?
I may have heard of it, but the reason I asked you the question is because you said something earlier about the importance of people being able to build in these down market conditions. And I would say it really wasn't until like summertime or Q3 of 2021, the NFTs really, got kind of ridiculous. So I was curious how NFTs really came on your radar, and how because obviously to have an idea and then spin up a business and then go raise on that business, that takes some time. So you had the inclination, pretty early on, I would say, in what was probably the total life cycle of the general awareness of NFTs. So I'm just curious what that process was like.
That's a great question. I think I heard a lot about it, and just being in the arts, and again, I was more in that traditional art sense, and I heard about NFTs, and I was just exploring actually what it was. And when I saw from EO, Yatsu was talking online, and I really liked his philosophy. So for me, I'm all about the person. It's not just about the company; it's about the person. And he was speaking, and he was talking about decentralized, and with communities, with Facebook. Why do we get these massive Facebook numbers, and then all of a sudden you have to actually pay to be a part of Facebook? And I was like, that is so true. Like, how annoying is that? It happens within my business. Like, we've got this massive Facebook following, then I have to pay to go and talk to my my fans, and it's just ridiculous. So I like that idea, and it sort of probably made me a little bit angry, slightly. And then he was telling me about how his parents were classically trained musicians in Austria. So I thought, do you know what? He actually understands the artist's journey. So then he said, there's a fund out there, and I applied, and we did get the funding come through. But that was at the end of, I think it happened in August. I saw him talk, and then September, and it took a while to go through. There was thousands of people applied. I think about 27 people, 27 groups all around the world went through, and we went through. Actually, it was in February this year, for a whole month, and we had all people from all around the world talking to us, just learning. It's like it was like an MBA about NFTs, Web3, blockchain. There was a gaming side, and there's also a food tech side, interestingly enough, that they invested in. We're still all very much in touch now. But coming back to the NFTs, I'm really funny about my reputation, and also, I represent thousands of artists. We've got a massive database as well. So I've been watching OpenSea. I've been watching how, Super Rare, all the larger ones out there, how that's moving. And I really felt that, the proof is in the pudding, really, with what's happened now, the sort of the down crash of, I suppose crypto winter, they call it. So yeah, I'm still watching that and waiting. It will come back, but I'm just making sure that the artist that I'm selecting and the artist I'm taking through has got longevity. Because the thing is, as soon as you're out there, your reputation's out there, you can't take it back. That's the other thing. So I'm just very careful and just making my mark. And I'm actually looking for a collaborator, I guess. With Sugar Glider, it's different. We can go through that after, but looking at how I could start my own, I suppose, community, and why. Because when I have a lot of clients come to me going, I want to go and do a DAO, or I want to do some NFTs, and people call me all the time about it. And I'm like, but why? Why do you want to do that? And they think, I just want to make money out of it. It's a return on investment. I was like, yeah, but you've got to think about the why before, because you're going to create that community. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm not getting as many phone calls now, to be honest with you. That was like a couple of months ago. So
that's how it goes.
The tide change. Yeah. So, Did I answer your question?
No, for sure. I think it's what I heard from that fundamentally was you stayed in the loop and you stayed a student. You didn't have to go to these meetings for the Entrepreneurs Organization. You're a decade in with Art Pharmacy, so you could be like, well, what do I have to learn from this conversation? My business is great, But I think that says a lot to stay open-minded and continuously try to strive to learn about what's really going on, because, I think it's very natural for us to get into a routine or a habit, and it's the same way with technologies. Social media comes around and be like, what is that thing? And then eventually, if you're not using it, you probably aren't getting the visibility you could. Ergo, your total addressable market is probably not as large as it would otherwise be. And in a similar vein, we're now seeing these other technologies drip out. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, that's a fad, that's a wave. Look, it was a bubble, it crashed, ha, ha, ha. But if you're really paying attention and you are able to delineate the signal from the noise, as they say, then you are able to kind of identify what really is the staying power and what does this bring to the table that fundamentally would not be possible otherwise, or would be so much more work and rigor to achieve the same outcome. So what is it about distributed ledger technology, blockchains, NFTs, that verifiable authenticity? What was it about that technological innovation that you thought would be a benefit, so much so not to just incorporate it into Art Pharmacy, but to spin up Sugar Glider as its own entity?
Yeah, and great question. I mean, and it's interesting, a lot of people do say, well, you're almost Web 2 going in Web 3, and when we have these digital art assets on the large screens, that's when we'll use the blockchain as a technology to say, this is a block, this is where this is the artist owns that, and then the royalties for that artist. I just love that idea, rather than having to do a contract. So I work with a lot of lawyers. I've got like a contract for art for our businesses, and you have to send it. So if you can, the fact that it's actually out there in the world, how amazing is that? And then also for many, many years to come, that artist over and over again is going to get that royalty, and it just keeps delivering into their wallet. I think that's it's fabulous. It's got a long way to go to be. I can see that, but just those beginning ideas and way that's going to happen. And I love this idea of, and as I said, there's a really great guy that did speak to us in our cohort when we were going through this accelerator. And he predicted this. He goes, it's all going to crash. Just watch it. And I was like, and as soon as he said that, I thought, you're absolutely right, because it's like the 90s, or was it the 90s or 2000s? So he was talking about the Ruby Rails. He's like, it's going to happen. But then in those larger companies, or those smaller companies, they're the ones that will actually come out of the ashes. So, and that's what I like about that blockchain. It's still going to stay, but these new companies are going to be forming and using that. So I really think I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years with this space and this technology, and who's at home right now in their offices replanning their not their attack, but how to come back out from this. It's a really exciting. But I think I want to come back to that blockchain comment there. I do have a lot of artists and a lot of clients now. I actually don't mention it, like especially to Web 2 clients in the city, more of those corporate clients. I actually take out blockchain from. I don't even tell them about it anymore because they're like, what is that? And I have to explain what an NFT is and what a like it's. So now I just say, this is what we do, this is what we deliver. And then it's our technology behind it. When you go into when you go and buy something, you don't find out about the technology, do you? You just automatically do it. So it's the same sort of thing. So I've now sort of not blocked it, but unless they really do ask me, I actually don't mention it to the clients. And I'm taking it out of my actual client decks now when I contact them. And same with the artists, depending on where they are. Usually the artists we're working with are quite open-minded, but we are working with a couple of First Nations artists that are a little bit, we've got one at the moment who's like, what's an NFT? And I said, look, just trust us. We've got a good reputation and we're on that journey with them at the moment, and explaining what it is and, holding their hand, I guess. It takes a lot longer to do that, but it's good.
I imagine it takes a little bit longer. Are you finding any recurring themes when you're speaking? Because let's just focus on the artist in particular, and then maybe we can talk about the clients who want to bring that art into their space. What are you finding as being the people who are interested in it? Are you noticing something that's fundamentally different about them, that they are interested in it? And what is it that they think that they find as most beneficial with the NFT component to it? And anybody who's a little bit weary, what are you usually finding are their reservations with that technology being used, their art?
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is, I think because it's crypto winter out there, and I remember going to parties and everyone's talking about crypto and this and that, and now no one ever talks about it, right? So I think that's also come back into the artists' minds as well. Generally, because we're now working with digital artists, they tend to be a couple of steps more further than the traditional painter, I guess. So they're a little bit more open-minded. And just remember, we're doing like digital artworks. They're not just an NFT. So an NFT is like, quite smaller. These particular works are massive works on large screens. Like if you get an NFT, if you have to blow it up, it's probably quite pixelated. So we're having to get, have it in a cloud, like even to try and send you one of these artworks that it sometimes takes up to 20 minutes to send it to you. It's just insane.
What's the resolution usually? Is it like 8K?
The fat 4K, yeah, 4 to 8K. Yeah, depending on the size and depending on the size of the screen as well. So this is what we're we're in beta testing, I guess, at the moment, where we've got real clients. We've actually got four signed off contracts, which is great. It's great, but it's like, I need to sort of, we're building that technology at the moment of how to deliver those screens, those artworks really quickly, because we're doing a subscription base. So every 3 months, there's a new artwork, 3 new artworks that get delivered to your screen, well, depending on your subscription. And then they also change depending on the season, or, if it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or First Nations Week. So we're really trying to think about how that works within the space, because we're working with a lot of corporate clients. And if you, I don't know if you've been to a corporate office recently, nobody's there. Like it's actually quite sad. Like they're all gone. Like Sydney, they're all getting everyone to come back. And actually in the US, it felt a lot, there was a lot going on. But we were in Melbourne. I was just down in Melbourne just yesterday. And the city is a ghost town. It was super affected by COVID. I think they had the longest lockdown in the whole wide world. Like it was, and there's a lot of weird stuff happening down there. Let me tell you. So I think it's like and a lot of people aren't in those offices, and they're using digital art to try and bring them back into the offices to make it a place to, and also that there's another trend as well, because I work in that property sector. And again, I was up on the Gold Coast recently for a property conference. So I was learning about the new trends. So ESG is a trend, but also getting people back to the office is a massive trend. So we're a part of that. And also ESG, so which is the environmental, social and governance. I'm sure you probably know what that is.
Because you all are B-Corp certified.
Yes, that's right. Which is, again, in Australia, no one knows what it is. But in America, they're like, yeah. I was like, yes. So that makes me feel good when I go to the US. I'm like, yay.
Yeah, so if you could just break that down for people, what that means and kind of the process that you had to go through to get that approval.
Well, it took a long time. So it was so they basically, ESG is looking at, if you're a for-profit company, which we are, in the early days of Art Pharmacy, I was very much, I actually couldn't really afford to even pay the lawyers' fees to actually be a non-for-profit company. So you can get charity, because it was and then have a board, which actually in hindsight was a good thing. But because you can get some investment from, but anyway, it didn't work out for me, but in a way it was amazing. But yeah, so B Corporation is, looking at how you're looking after your social impact, really. So we support many artists. When you come to us, we will give you a long list of artists, and so once you've signed everything else, depending on where the artwork is, this is for Art Pharmacy. So if you've got a big long mural wall, or if you have a big public artwork, we'll give you a long list of artists, and within that there will be culturally, linguistically diverse artists, First Nations artists, male-female ratio. So we really think about not just handing the same artist over again, because there are some art consultants that do that. They work with the same 10 artists. It's actually quite easy for them. But then what happens is you're finding the whole city is homogenized. So there's an artist which I won't name, and I've just got an email from an architect asking for his name. And actually she emailed me 3 times because she really wanted this artist. And I emailed her back yesterday and I said, can you please try and find, and he's an Indigenous artist, fantastic artist. I said, can you find diversity within diversity, please? Because everyone's trying to use these artists. I said, he's in every single development within Sydney, like a 5-mile radius, and it all looks homogenized. I was like, what is that? So that gets my goat as well. So, but coming back to B-Corp, it's really about how you support your local community. And so between 2019 and 2021, we gave back $1.3 million back to our local community, all suppliers in Australia and artists. So we're really proud of that, considering we're a small business. And this year we're going through that at the moment. I think we've given about $350,000, and we're just going through that at the moment. So don't quote me on that, but that'll come out in my email. But the process is long. They look at how you sustainability, like how you throw out your rubbish. Like when you've got an event, are you using plastic straws? Are you using, like, how are you running events? How are you doing things within the organisation? Like, are you taking, can you ride? Do you have ender facilities at your office? Do you have the option of transport cards, little things like that? And then thinking about the community, who you're working with and your clients. So there's about 5 or 6 main areas. My advice would be, if you're going to go down that route, to get a B Corp certified coach. We found someone and she sort of coached us through it. It's actually writing policies for your business. That's pretty much it, if I have to round it up. Like how you deal with people when they come in, how you deal with artists, how you deal with your clients. If someone's unhappy, you're getting all these ratings, and they go through your financials. And it took about 18 months. It was a long time. And then you have to get certified every year to say that you're meeting those guidelines. We're very proud we got it. I mean, I have to say, it was just, even now I'm like, I can't believe we did that. Anyway,
now, I'm curious, when you started up Sugar Glider, now the B Corp certification is for Art Pharmacy and Sugar Glider, or just is for both of them?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. With Art Pharmacy, I've kept it to itself, and with Sugar Glider, it's a totally different, separate business. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually looking at, I mean, we're still starting up, right? We've only been going for about 8 months now. So we're already starting to track the artists that we're working with. We're tracking our clients, so we're already doing that. And I think I need more tracking information, and we've got our policies. So I think in about 6 months' time I will apply. But again, it will be quite long. But because I know from the first how to do it from the beginning. So if you are out there and you're a new business and you're starting up, or if you're a larger business, start thinking about this and start tracking early on, and just have something in your diary where, what you're doing to give back. And you've got to measure these things. So you've got to measure your own. So ours is about the artist and where they come from, who they are they regional Australia, they're here. Yeah, so that's how we sort of mainly track our social impact. And you can do it in different ways. Like it could be sustainability. It could be the way that you with your staff, you let them have off 1 day a week. You could be doing a wellness plan within your organization. So there's lots of different tangents you can go down, but it's and they've got a really great community as well with like-minded people. I actually didn't realize how much I love people that are B-Corp. Like they just think differently. They're not very selfish. They're like, I'm making money, but how can I also support this next generation? Because, we've all got so much in our lives, right? I feel like, do you need anything more in your life? Like, do you need that extra thing? Like it's, we just have so much, and then you look around the world or even in our own societies and around our back door, there's a lot of people that are doing it quite bad. So if you can try and have a different mindset, I like the mindset from them. And it's great.
Yeah, because I was curious. They've been around for a while. I don't know how long they've been around, but I've been seeing them on products for at least the last, decade, 15 years. And I was curious how quickly they are educating themselves about these different chains and the different sort of environmental implications. And a lot of it is overblown. I'll just say, personally, I'll just put that on record. But regardless, I mean, I get where people are coming from. So I was just curious how they may be navigating, Sugar Glider, do you use this blockchain? Do you use that blockchain? And if that in any way impacts how they're rating you. And then another thought I had while you were talking was, I don't know, I'm just throwing out an idea here, but if you have considered actually writing it into the contracts themselves, where part of the proceeds with what's going on with Sugar Glider is automatically sent to a different charity. Because depending on the way that the architecture is built and the smart contract layer, you can actually add somebody else as like a royalty recipient from these different artworks. And then that could be another way to kind of streamline some of this donation process and be able to have it, very one-to-one track with what a particular work or artist is doing. And, B-Corp couldn't do that before. So maybe you showed them some new shit,
I know this is it. And you know what? You're absolutely right about that. And I do wonder if they even are across this. I don't think they are. I mean, maybe.
I doubt it.
Assuming. That's what I'm saying. So there could be an opportunity there to start your own. We could actually start our own Sae'Von, our own, like we can call it, what could we call it? Something Corp. and I mean, there are, because I have looked into this, and what you're mentioning here, this is very close to my heart, because if you give 1%, it's nothing, but that 1%, that all accumulates and you give back. So that's something that we are definitely looking into. We're looking at, do we start our own? Do we go and partner with someone that is already doing something? Like I met this really great guy yesterday, and he's been in Pakistan. He has all these dev teams out there, and he's just gone in, bought 2 shops in the middle of in this really big town, and he's getting a GP in these quite poor towns, and it doesn't cost him a lot, but he's now getting the Pakistani government, he's giving back. And I was like, this is B-Corp, what you're doing here. This is social impact. And I thought, trying to find people to also partner with as well, I think that's really important. But it's interesting that you've talked about that, because that's something that I would love to do. And I think it's in me as well. I've often thought about, what about I start my own one? And I always tend to sort of hear people that have, and it's not much, like to give such a small amount. And I was really depressed, actually, not depressed, but when I was in the US, when I did meet these companies that are earning all this money, like, some of these guys, who knows, some people telling me, he's a billionaire or a millionaire, wherever he is. And then you ask and you say, like, how are you giving back? You're right at the top of the pinnacle. How are you giving back? They actually couldn't answer a lot of it, because I suppose they're so new, they've formed, and they haven't really come up with these ideas. So maybe people who are listening as a podcast, I think there is opportunity there to actually start businesses that can actually help these larger organizations, because they don't know actually where to look and where to find those. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's something in me as well, down the track.
It certainly
could
open
something up.
No, glad to hear it. If we could shift gears just a touch, you are a founder in Web3, right? I don't know if you wear that title on your sleeve proudly. It's different energy that you get during the bull run and the bear market with that.
I can't believe it. Yes, that is exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. It's good.
For sure. Yeah. Because I remember there was it was like the second or third day of consensus, and it was like, all right, cool. They had the Outkast concert that night prior, and it was like, boom. Well, let's catch up tomorrow and see where you're at. And I remember you mentioning that there was like a all women panel or something like that. And so, being a founder in Web3 and a woman, you are in a smaller bucket of people at this moment. How has that experience been? Have you found a lot of people reaching out to you for some leadership, and maybe they weren't as familiar with you before Sugar Glider, now they are, and they're like, yo, Emilya, you did it. You started a company, you raised from one of the biggest firms in the space. You have a dope, niche that you're in. How has that really been for you?
Wow, that's a really big question. You want me to be honest?
I don't expect shit but honesty. Come on now.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Look, it's been, I'm on my third business. I didn't tell you, but I've run another Culture Scouts walking tour. So I'm on my third business, and I'm more confident than ever because I feel like I don't know, just now that I've had one, COVID got rid of it. I'm now in another, and now this is a third. So I have this confidence, but I have to say, it's not easy. I said it to someone recently. I said, wow, it's actually not easy. But I've looked around a bit and I was like, wow, it's actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, to be honest with you, being a female founder. And I did go to Crypto Babes, and then there was another one called Bad Bitch Empire. Hilarious. Mm-hmm. I actually met a lot of, went to both of them actually. And really, it was really great to meet other females in the space. A lot of them sort of starting out, other people that were just, look, I suppose I suppose it's the diversity, diversity, I guess. I don't know. Look, it's been harder than I thought, actually, to be honest with you. And I actually have felt the fact that I am female. I'm sure you sometimes feel like actually I am the odd one out slightly. Like sometimes I've been to events, I'm like, wow, there's only like 5 females, and that's okay because that's okay. But and I think they say that I actually met this great woman called Lucinda Hartley, she started a tech business not within Web3, and she's from Melbourne, and we follow each other LinkedIn, and we sat down at this property conference, and she said to me, Emilya, I've just got investment only from female founders, only. All of them are female. And I was like, really? She's like, yes. I was like, oh, wow. And I was like, I've got so many questions around that, because I'm like, did you actually go out and seek that? So who knows? The thing is about investment, it's a marriage, right? It's like a business marriage. That's one thing. It's like when you're, with your partner, it's a journey together. And it's the same thing with investors as well. And I have met quite a few people, which I'm like, I would not go like, no, definitely not want to go and work with them. And, but you can, coming back to that B-Corp thing is, who's actually on your panel. And there's something here in Sydney again, in Manly, they've got this NFT event, all 4 guys. It's like, come on, guys, have you not got that right? Like, and also thinking about who's on your panel too. And I went to a couple of events for New York NYC, and again, there's these 4 white guys getting up, middle at like sort of in their 30s. I was like, wow. And I knew one of the guys that did it, and I said to him, hey, what happened there? And he sort of laughed me off. But I was like, no, like really, like have you not been reading? Like, where have you been sitting under a rock or something? But it's still. I think I heard a quotation years ago that it takes 15% of the population to actually, if 15% of the population can get behind it, then then it goes into mainstream. So anything with climate change, I suppose like Black Lives Matters. Like even we think about Web3, then once that hits that, then it starts that. And I think we haven't got to that 15% in Web3, but the ESG side, that female tech foundry side as well. Look, generally, I suppose men are actually much better in that sort of tech, they're incredible in that sort of side. I suppose what I bring to the space is the fact that the experience that I have. Anyway, it's a journey. I'm actually loving it because I'm watching the reactions and understanding, because I feel like it's avatar, right? You know, when you meet someone, you've got an avatar with them and you've got to find out, are we connected? How do we connect? And what are your views that I can learn in a different perspective? I love people seeing people's perspectives on things because everyone thinks so differently. So, yeah, the avatar moment, I call it. We had an avatar moment, actually. Didn't we?
Yeah, it made me think of that. Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you meet different people, there's varying levels of resonance, right? My partner and I were talking about this the other day, and you know, you might resonate on point A, point B, point C, whatever. But the more resonance there is, typically the more harmonious that interaction or that relationship is going to be. And I think that there are certain situations where that can be felt more palpably, more quickly, and then others where you're kind of like sitting there like, maybe we're both still tuning the piano, and then we'll figure out in a second if there's some resonance there. But that is a cool way to think about it, the avatar moment. I dig that.
Actually, and I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal the tuning the piano bit. That's a good one, because I can see you, cleaning it out. But and that's what life's about, really. I feel like it's actually about finding the right people to come on your journey, right? It's not actually, and then this is the thing, it's not just about the financial thing, it's actually the whole of yourself is actually how can you be whole in every single day, and how can you live a life to know that tomorrow you could be gone? I mean, how good is that? That's the way I try and live my life every day. I'm like, if I'm gone tomorrow, am I happy with what I did today and how I was with my friends, family, blah, blah, blah. And it's hard to do, but I think if you can get there in life, and especially when you're younger, because you just meet so many people that are so crabby and so sad, you know?
No, that's real. That's real. That's true. Real. All right. So as we kind of get to the end of this conversation, I'm just curious, any thoughts you may have? They can be hot takes, cold takes, whatever. Just Emilya's takes.
What are my takes? If you're listening to this, I think if you have an idea or you're thinking about it, just start. This is the best time to start anything. And start on the side. And if you're working full time and you're like, I can't do it, just start on the side, because the thing is, it takes about 5 to 7 years to start a business, to get to that point where you're making decent money, you're hiring people. I mean, it might be quicker, maybe in this Web3 space, but it takes 5 years to really get your confidence up. So if you've got an idea, just start now. It's easy to put a website up and just jump in and learn. That would be one of my things. Also, you gut instinct, always trust your gut. Your gut's never wrong. And I think Olivia Newton-John, she just passed yesterday, and I think she was in a massive yoga and someone put it up somewhere, and she always said, I have to trust my gut. And your gut's never wrong. When you feel like something's not right, it always is. So coming back to yourself, I think that's just really important. And then speaking out if you're not having a good time as well. If there was in our cohort, one of the founders actually committed suicide recently, which is, I'm quite upset about, actually. So I wasn't very close to him, but was one of the other guys. And I think I was sad to hear. So, and I know that it's probably rifled through the community. I was saddened by that. And I think that within this space as well, there's a lot of that. So if you're feeling bad or whatever, or blame, because there was a lot of messages that came out of that, and I thought, wow, how did that happen? And that, and I was talking with my husband about it. I said, how do you get to that point when you say you give up? We should never give up. So that's probably a little bit deep there. And what else is, like, actually just have fun, like set an intention. Every word, I have a word of the year. Last year was flow, and actually we had a intention for this podcast, which is also flow, because I love when you go down a river and when you meet a big rock, instead of pouncing it, you just float around it. So that was my word. This year is intention. So every time I meet people, I want to set an intention with them. I want to understand intention. I think it's a really powerful, and if you can have a year of the word for your team, for everything that you do, I think that's really powerful. And I think that's pretty much it. And just have fun, have fun. Yeah.
Sage advice, great wisdom. Thank you for that. I appreciate people are comfortable talking about the deeper things or the sort of topics that aren't, that just get to the core of what it is that we do day to day, which is live life. And I think it could be a good reframe to kind of get out of the kind of narrow focus that can often spring up, particularly in this space. And I know something definitely that I deal with. Cool. So please let the people know where they can find you, how they can reach out, how they can work with you, whether it be Art Pharmacy, Sugar Glider, or some other capacity. Please let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, lovely. So we're on LinkedIn. I know that's probably like Emilya Colliver, Emilya Colliver. Always love to hear, and I put up posts every week. This is mainly for my corporate clients, I guess. That's the reason why I'm in there. I'm on Telegram as well, Sugar Glider Digital on Twitter. And Instagram, as I mentioned. But reach out. I always love to hear, especially if you're anywhere around the world, I always love to hear from you. It's Emilya at Sugar Glider Digital. But have a look at us. It's like the little animal. Someone did to me the other day. So do you know what a sugar glider is? And he went, shh, like this to me. And he was this sort of, he was probably a guy in his 50s, and it was such a cute thing to do. And he goes, yeah, I remember when I was a kid. And I was like, I loved him even more when he did that to me. So it's a little sugar glider. And the idea I forgot to tell you is it's a marsupial in Australia, and they give their milk young, which is a bit random. But they fly from one tree to the other in the dark. And it was my Web 2 to Web 3 journey. So that's why it's called Sugar Glider Digital, because I'm learning how to fly in the dark and learn about Web 3. So that's also So find me there. And thank you so much. It's been so good to connect with you again after meeting you in hot, sweaty Austin.
Yes, it was hot, but it was a good time, and it was definitely one of the highlights of the trip. So thank you for making the time. Thank you for being on, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you.